I am the vine. You are the branches. Yes, I am the vine, you are the branches. Whoever lives in me and I in him shall produce a large crop of fruit. For apart from me you can't do a thing. John chapter 15, verse 5. When Jesus said, I am the vine, and you are the branches, he was using a metaphor to teach that he is the source of life for his followers, and that they must remain connected to him to produce fruit, that is any good thing. The purpose of this information is to, briefly, analyze the whole nature of man, find all the forces in his possession, whether they be visible or invisible, active or inactive, and to present procedures through which all those forces can be applied in making the life of each individual richer, greater, fuller and better. To make every step of this work as useful as possible to the greatest number of people possible, not a single statement will be made that all cannot understand, and not a single idea will be presented that anyone cannot apply to everyday life. We all want to know what we actually have both in the physical, the mental and the spiritual world, and we want to know how the elements and forces within us can be used in the most successful way. It is results in everyday life that we want, and we are not true to ourselves or the human race until we learn to use the powers within us most effectively, so that the greatest results possible within the possibilities of human nature are secured. When we proceed with a careful study of the subject, we find that the problem before us is to know what is in us and how to use what is in us. After much study of the powers in man, both conscious and subconscious, we have come to the conclusion that if we only knew how to use these powers, we could accomplish almost anything that we may have in view. And not only realize our wants to the fullest degree, but also reach even our highest goals. Despite the fact that this may seem to be a strong statement, be that as it may, when we examine the whole nature of human beings, we are bound to admit that it is true even in its fullest sense, and that therefore, not a single individual can fail to realize their wants and reach their goals, after they have learned how to use the powers that are within them. This is not just speculation, or is it simply a beautiful dream? The more we study the lives of people who have achieved, and the more we study our own experience every day, the more convinced we become that there is no reason whatever why any individual should not realize all their ambitions and much more. The basis of this study will naturally be found in the understanding of the whole nature of human beings, as we must know what we are, before we can know and use what we naturally possess. In examining human nature, a number of ways have been employed, but there are only three in particular that are of actual value for our present purpose. The first of these declares that individuals are composed of ego, consciousness and form, and this analysis is the most complete, yet it is also the most abstract, and is therefore not easily understood. The second way, which is simpler, and which is applied almost exclusively by the majority, declares that individuals are body, mind and soul, but as much as this idea is thought of and spoken of, there are very few who actually understand it. In fact, the usual conception of a human being, as body, mind and soul will have to be completely reversed in order to become absolutely true. The third way, which is the simplest and the most serviceable, declares that human beings are composed of individuality and personality, and it is this conception of human nature that will make up the study in this work. Before we pass to the more practical side of the subject, we shall find it profitable to examine briefly these various ideas concerning the nature of human beings. In fact, every part of our human examination that refers to the ego simply must be understood if we are to learn how to use the forces we possess, and the reason for this is found in the fact that the ego is the I am, the ruling principle in human beings, the center and source of individuality, the originator of everything that takes place in people, and that primary something to which all other things in human nature are secondary. The average person employs the term ego. He thinks that he is dealing with something that is hidden so deeply in the intangible, that it can make but little difference whether we understand it or not. This, however, does not happen to be true, because it is the ego that must act before any action can take place anywhere in the human system, and it is the ego that must originate the new before any step in advance can be taken. In addition, it is extremely important to realize that the power of will to control the forces we possess depends directly upon how fully aware we are of the ego as the ruling principle within us. We understand that it is absolutely necessary to associate all thought, all feeling and all actions of mind or a personality with the ego, or what we shall hereafter speak of as the I am. The first step to be taken in this connection is to recognize the I am in everything you do, and to think always of the I am as being you, the superior you. Whenever you think, realize that it is the I am that produced the thought. Whenever you act, realize that it is the I am that gives energy to that action, and whenever you think of yourself or try to be mindful of yourself, realize that the I am occupies the throne of your entire field of awareness. Another important principle is to acknowledge silently in your own mind that you are the I am, and as you acknowledge this statement, or as you simply pronounce positively, I am, think of the I am as being the ruling principle in your whole world, as being distinct, above and superior to all else in your being, and as being you, yourself, in the highest, largest, and most complete sense. You thereby lift yourself up, so to speak, to the mountaintop of masterful individuality, you enthrone yourself, you become true to yourself, you place yourself where you belong. Through this practice you not only discover yourself to be the master of your whole life, but you elevate all your conscious actions to that elevated state in your awareness that we may describe as the throne of your being, or as that center of action within which the ruling I am lives and moves and has its being. If you wish to control and direct the forces you possess, you must act from the seat of power of your being, or in other words, from that conscious point in your mental world wherein all power of control, direction and initiative proceeds, and this point of action is the center of the I am. You must act not as a body, not as a personality, not as a mind, but as the I am, and the more fully you recognize the elevated position of the I am, the greater becomes your power to control and direct all other things that you may possess. Whenever you think or act, you should feel that you stand with the I am at the top of mentality on the very heights of your existence, and you should at the same time realize that this I am is you, the dominant you. The more you practice these methods, the more you lift yourself up above the limitations of mind and body, into the realization of your own true position as a masterful individuality. In fact, you place yourself where you belong, over and above everything in your orderly existence. When we examine the mind of the average person, we find that they usually recognize their self with mind or body. They either think that they are body or that they are mind, and therefore they can control neither mind or body. The I am, in their nature, is submerged in a bundle of ideas, some of which are true and some of which are not, and their thought is usually controlled by those ideas without receiving any direction whatever from that principle within them that alone was intended to give direction, that is the I am. Such a person lives in the lower level of human existence, but as we can control life only when we give directions from the upper level, we discover just why the average person neither understands their forces or has the power to use them. They must first elevate themselves to the upper level of the human structure, and the first and most important step to be taken in this direction is to recognize the I am as the ruling principle, and that the I am is you. Another method that will be found highly important in this connection is to take a few moments every day and try to feel that you, the I am, is not only above mind and body, but in a certain sense, distinct from mind and body. In fact, try to isolate the I am for a few moments every day from the rest of your physical being. This practice will give you what may be termed a perfect awareness of your own individual I am, and as you gain that awareness you will always think of the Supreme I am whenever you think of yourself. Accordingly, all your mental actions will, from that time on, come directly from the I am, and if you will continue to stand above all such actions at all times, you will be able to control them and direct them completely. To examine awareness and form in this connection is hardly necessary, except to define briefly their general nature, so that we may have a clear idea of what we are dealing with in the conscious field as well as in the field of expression. The I am is fundamentally conscious, that is, the I am knows what exists in the human field or in the human sphere and what is taking place in the human sphere, and that constitutes awareness. In brief, you are awake when you know that you exist and have some definite idea as to what is taking place in your area of existence. What we speak of as form is everything in the organized personality that has shaped and that serves in any manner to give expression to the forces within us. In the exercise of awareness, we find that the I am employs three fundamental actions. When the I am looks out upon life, we have simple awareness. When the I am looks upon its own position in life, we have self-awareness, and when the I am looks up into the vastness of real life, we have universal awareness. In simple awareness, you are only aware of those things that exist externally to yourself, but when you begin to become conscious of yourself as a distinct entity, you begin to develop self-awareness. When you begin to turn your attention to the great within and begin to look up into the real source of all things, you become conscious of that world that seemingly exists within all worlds, and when you enter upon this experience, you are on the borderland of infinite awareness, the most fascinating subject that has ever been known. When we come to define body, mind and soul, we must, as previously stated, reverse the usual definition. In the past, we have constantly used the expression, I have a soul, which naturally implies the belief that I am a body, and so deeply has this idea become fixed in the average mind that nearly everybody thinks of the body whenever the term me or myself is used. In this attitude of mind, the individual is not above the physical states of thought and feeling. In fact, they are more or less submerged in what may be called a bundle of physical facts and ideas, of which they have very little control. You cannot control anything in your life until you are above it. You cannot control what is in your body until you realize that you are above your body. You cannot control what is in your mind until you realize that you are above your mind, and therefore no one can use the forces within to any extent so long as they think of self as being the body, or as being localized exclusively in the body. When we examine the whole nature of man, we find that the soul is the man himself, and that the ego is the central principle of the soul, or to use another expression, the soul, including the I am, constitutes the individuality, and that visible something through which individuality finds expression, constitutes the personality. If you wish to understand your forces, and gain that masterful attitude necessary to control your forces, train yourself to think that you are a soul, but do not think of the soul as something blurry or mystifying. Think of the soul as being the individual you and all that that expression can possibly mean. Train yourself to think that you are master of mind and body, because you are above mind and body, you are spirit and possess the power to use everything that is in mind and body. Man is ever in search of strength. It is the strong person that wins. It is the person with power that scales the heights. To be strong is to be great, and it is the privilege of greatness to satisfy every desire, every aspiration, every need. But strength is not for the few, it is for all, and the way to strength is simple. Proceed this very moment to the mountain tops with the strength you now possess, and whatever may happen, do not come down. Do not weaken under adversity. To remain as strong, and as highly dedicated during the darkest night of adversity as you are during the sunniest day of prosperity. Do not feel disappointed when things seem disappointing. Keep the eye single upon the same brilliant future regardless of circumstances, conditions or events. Do not lose heart when things go wrong. Continue undisturbed in your original resolve to make all things go right. To be overcome by adversity and threatening failure is to lose strength. To always remain in the same elevated, determined mood is to constantly grow in strength. The person who never weakens when things are against them will grow stronger and stronger until all things will work for them. They will finally have all the strength they may desire or need. Most of the important things in the world have been accomplished by people who have kept on trying when there seemed to be no hope at all. Peace. Make each day a fruitful day.